Time to start pissing some people off. In the year of our Lord, 2025, there has been a disturbance in the Force. A quiet, mostly unheard grumbling that started years ago, but it has been growing louder and more despondent each day from people you normally wouldn't assume would be thinking such things. I'm speaking, of course, about the new buzzword going around the internet today, and that would be fatigue. We've got black fatigue, we've got trans fatigue, and now that it's Pride Month, we're going to start experiencing the gay fatigue. And I go through this just about every June myself. So it's time to don those collars and leather thongs and harnesses, attach those Dayglow strap-ons, and head over to a family-friendly Pride near you. Let's discuss the corporate disaster we call Pride Month. Hello everyone, I'm Aaron Dusk, indie author of two fantastic books, The Mark of Amuli and The Varcross Key. They are available in all formats, from physical to ebook and even audiobook for the gay on the go. And speaking of gay... It's June 1st, the sun is shining, the weather is warmer, and every building in just about every major city in the world is vomiting obnoxiously loud colors from their windows and doors. Roads that were once black and gray get a visit from Rainbow Bright and Twink, turning into retina-burning murals that spook horses and frighten straight men in lifted trucks. And by the way, when I speak of Twink, I'm talking about this little shit, and not this one. I've had my straight, more conservative friends ask me, why does this get an entire month, but Veterans Day only gets a day? And my response is always the same. It's capitalism, baby. It's the same reason why veterans are only ever acknowledged during political campaign speeches while remaining mostly forgotten throughout the entire year. Reminding people that our country is and has always been a crooked, world-destabilizing war machine, sending poor young men and women out to be maimed both physically and mentally for the benefit of the rich warhawks that run our country from the shadows, doesn't exactly move merchandise as well as waving around this gaudy abomination. There's just something that feels inherently gross about Pride, and it's something that gay people talk about mostly on the down low, while trying not to rock the boat too much, but the times, they are a-changin', and I'm about to rock this boat until we all fall off of it. I kind of noticed it last year, but didn't really think about it much because I obviously had a lot more pressing issues I had to contend with during that time. This year, though, I'm starting to see news articles with the same trend, with the same trending headline, really, and it's that Pride Month is falling out of favor. Businesses and corporations are noticing trends and have been pulling back their proud and loud support in favor of something a little more subdued. Funding is being cut for parades and events, and Trump is now taking up all the oxygen on mainstream media outlets. So Pride is kind of fading silently into the background, and a lot of gay people are actually kind of happy about that, and I'll explain why. Don't jump all over me yet. Well, actually, you probably will by the time I'm done with this. But it's not so much about being happy. It's more about being relieved. Now, a lot of you are probably confused, so I'll give you a good example. When you think of a furry, okay, what's the first thing that pops into your head? Yeah, I'll wait. I'll give you guys... No, you guys don't even... You don't even need to wait. I know exactly what everybody's thinking right now. I'm going to guess the majority of you out there are probably have some kind of negative assumptions about the furry community. And don't get me wrong, it's well-deserved in a lot of cases. However, the stuff that often makes the headlines or goes viral on social media is not representative of the entire community or an entire demographic for that matter. But it's what gets attention. And that's unfortunately the reality of the increasingly dystopian timeline we're forced to occupy. Even though the majority of my reader base are furries, and they are decent, normal people for the most part, I can't help but associate furry with shit like groomers and pedos, dirty diapers filling up hotel rooms, and overly sexual public displays, and of course, jizz on pizza. While we're on the subject of generalizing, you should do a Google search for the term black fatigue, which has been going around quite virally lately, and you'll see some of the worst displays of black culture with actual black people saying, I'm done with this shit. It's not representative of black people as a whole, and they're right. But black culture is no longer seen as a positive thing because what goes viral is all the ratchet ghetto bullshit spotlighting the worst humanity has to offer. And it's not just black culture. It can be an entire state. For example, I'm from Florida. I'm originally from Florida. And I know what all of you guys are immediately thinking. Everybody immediately goes to this point. I grew up around Florida man. I am a Florida man. But you'd think from the news, the entire state is full of crazy white trash people cooking meth in trucks on cinder blocks, when really that's just the panhandle. Pride Month is our Florida man headline. It's our jizz on pizza. It's our ratchet hood viral TikToks. Most Pride events, and especially in smaller towns, are tame and rather family friendly. Where I live, the events are actually quite tasteful and wholesome, where children and old people can come out and just enjoy the town, be downtown without having to worry about, I don't know, something lewd on display at any given time, because this is a public event after all. The drag queens only come out at night behind closed doors. Kink stays where it belongs, which is not anywhere in my space or my vision. Thank you. But that's not always what happens. Pride events can get really unsavory, and that's what makes the news, okay? I mean, you'd almost think that someone getting peed on from a dildo float in San Francisco is pretty much the norm with how much media attention something like that would get. But that's the reality, okay? That's what gets the most attention, and it's always the few that ruin it for the majority. And I'm going to go off, and if I may go off on a little tangent here, I think some of the most hated people in the world right now are activists. And when they actually used to be seen as people who stood for something, they stood for things that actually mattered, that actually, made changes or had positive effects on society. Now, activists stand only to gain political influence and power while grifting as much money as they possibly can from a movement that should have ended after we all gained equal rights, pretty much. But no, now we have every kind of activist under the sun, and if you want a platform that pays, you take up a cause and go as extreme as you possibly can, because once again, that's what gets media attention. That's what gets everybody's attention. That's what makes the money. These borderline predatory trans non-binary activists like Jeffrey Marsh and Lily Tino have become the faces of the trans movement. Even the fake shit, like remember the Canadian massive prosthetic tits guy in Ontario who ended up making one hell of a statement? Because instead of the guy being fired, he was allowed to keep up the charade, which he did on purpose to prove a point, but everyone is just going to see that and assume he's part of the trans community. He's the face of the trans community, and he's not, but he was allowed to do it because of the law, okay? People are abusing this shit and people are actively abusing this shit who are not a part of the trans community. They actually hate the gay and the trans community, but they're they're showing the flaws in the system right now. They're making an example of the gay community in the most unsavory and unflattering ways possible. And of course, we can't discuss Pride without discussing all of the corporate pandering. LGBTQ messaging has been in everything from movies to store shelves. At first, being gay was in. It was the in thing. Then it was trans. And if you weren't trans, you could be non-binary. It was a fad. It was popular. If you were a parent of a trans child, which I'm not going to get into because I'll just start to get really pissed off, you could be a viral social media success. We've become a population of people whose mental health waxes and wanes with social media likes and engagement. And now I guess the bar has finally gone to hell because now we're using children as tools for the same creepy and harmful engagement that everybody knows is wrong and bad, but we just keep doing it anyways because, we're all addicted to this shit for some reason. Pride Month has been ruled by corporate greed and grifting activists for years now, and now the fatigue has finally started to set in. November of 2024 sent a very strong message to the world that people are kind of done with this shit. Tolerance went from being taught to being forced. Once the public-facing corporate extremist part of the LGBT community started targeting children, that was when people put up their hands and said, okay, no more, we're done. And can you actually blame them? This is why I hate Pride. This is why I hate activists. This is why I hate social media. They give the worst of us all the publicity they could ever want, while they systematically tear down everything the gays and lesbians of the past literally died for, okay? The activists will have you believe will be put in camps and genocided, which I guess is a new buzzword nowadays, in order to keep up the grift, okay? But all they're doing is proving correct the slippery slope fallacy the conservatives have been warning about for decades. And it's not true, but that's, of course, again, what gets all of the fucking attention. And it all seems to happen the most during Pride Month. There always seems to come a point where a movement for good makes a dramatic shift with popularity to authoritarianism. You want to speak out against gay people or trans people? Well, you can have your entire life ruined or even be put in jail in some of the more progressive countries. The pendulum has swung in our favor for the last few years. And what have we really done with it? Well, I'll tell you what we've done with it. The same things the conservatives did with it in the 50s. And you can disagree with me all you want to, but your echo chamber is not my reality. I can step outside of that bullshit and see what's going on for real. And a lot of you should probably take a step back and have a bit of introspection. The Red Scare is now the Red Hat Scare, but I'm telling you, it's going to get much worse from here as support for gay marriage declines in the country leans further and further right. And here's the thing, the country is not actually getting more conservative. Trump was actually a result of this country overcorrecting itself before we reached the cliff's edge. Will the community gain some kind of introspection, or will this be the hill we choose to die on in the coming months and years? Will we start speaking out en masse against these extreme segments of our community that tend to ruin it for the rest of us? Or will we continue to sit back, afraid to say anything, while letting them dig our graves? Gays, lesbians, bisexuals, and trans people are starting to speak up. And it's great to hear. Black people are speaking up, women are speaking up. Once we all start speaking for sanity, common sense, and decency, it drowns out all of the insanity, the foolishness, and the displays of degeneracy that Pride has now become associated with. Is this really a month to be proud of? Not for me. We don't need a month. We can be proud of who we are based on our accomplishments in life, not our sexuality, not our gender identity. Those are things we can't really control, but they should just be normalized, not something we bring attention to 24/7, 365 days a year, and certainly not something that we bring attention to for an entire fucking month. I prefer to be known as Aaron Dusk, an author who writes books for gay men. I'm proud of that because it's something I worked hard to do and accomplish, and it's something that I can give to an overwhelmingly underserved community. I don't want to be known as Aaron Dusk, a gay author with 7 pronouns and 8 freaking flags in my Twitter bio. Anyways, that's it for today. If you like this video and would like to see more commentary like this, drop a comment, like, and subscribe. You know the deal. Until next time.